Hi, and welcome to How to Defend Your Agency Against Ransomware and Other New Threats webinar presented by Smart IT Services. My name is Whitney Ioma, and I'm currently NetVU's Operations Assistant. First, I'd like to start off with discussing some housekeeping rules. Everyone is muted, and also we are waiting till the end to answer any questions. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to type your question in the GoToMeeting question box. Also, this session is being recorded, and it will be sent to everyone placed in NetVU University in a few days as well. I am now going to turn the session over to your presenter, Bryant Caudill with Smart IT Services. Bryant?
Thank you, Whitney, and I appreciate everybody joining us today. You'll see my screen in a second, then we'll get started. All right, so again, thank you for everyone joining us today. We appreciate NetVU asking us to help out with the webinar today. Like Whitney said, we'll try to get through a lot of your questions as we go, I would imagine, and we'll leave plenty of time at the end. We'll stick around for any other questions that you might have. So without further ado, your time is valuable. Let's go get started. So what we're talking about today when we discuss current threats, viruses, spyware, Trojans, worms, you know, it's all been out there. We all have heard about these things and know what they are. And the newest, biggest threat we hear about today is called ransomware, and that's what we're going to focus on our webinar about today. We've all seen or heard about those scary things that just try to take over our files and really exploit for some money, hold our files ransom, and not let us get access to them until we pay or do something else. In particular, when we're talking about ransomware, the thing we see the most, and probably everybody, is no locker. It came out a few years ago, and it's basically just ransomware, but it's the most frequent and probably the hardest kind to deal with. So if anybody has seen a screen like this before, we do feel your pain, and we're going to give you lots of tips and tricks today for not only how to avoid it, but if you do happen to come across it, what you can do to quickly get back in action. So again, these viruses, these malware, ransomware, the CryptoLocker variants, they get into your computer from lots of different ways. So we're going to talk about protecting yourself online, email safety and security, as well as mobile, and then a few other general housekeeping type things you can do best practice-wise. So when it comes to protecting ourselves on the internet, you know, it seems in the IT world this gets more and more complicated every year. Malware is still a constant growing threat, whether it be malicious online pop-ups from just websites that we're browsing to, because you know, we all know that you can't, you know, spend an hour of your day working at the office without being online anymore. And oftentimes they'll either sneak things in or they trick you into putting stuff on your computer, often without you knowing it. Most of the time when we see these things and we hear that they've happened, they actually happened hours before you're even alerted to anything going on. What makes it even more complicated, some statistics from Sophos, one of the leading business antivirus providers nowadays, is they have found that over 80% of malware on websites is now coming from legitimate websites. We've heard and seen of agencies that have run into things like this where the people, you know, not only say but can prove that, hey, we weren't doing anything that we weren't supposed to do. We were just on our day-to-day carrier sites, other insurance-related things, doing searches for properties, finding pictures and whatnot. So protecting yourself online is tricky. I'm going to give you some real beefy, meaningful tips and tricks that you can take right back to your office. So when it comes to protecting yourself online, we've got a few different ways to go about it. First is putting in place what we call an acceptable usage policy. Now I know you've all heard of webinars and seen presentations where they're saying make a policy, make a policy. But really what this does management-wise at the agency is gives you a foot to stand on if somebody does do stuff that they know they're not supposed to be doing. We want to get people into the habit of doing safe web browsing. Now that's a tricky one. Again, I'm going to give you some more details about that. But you know, some general safety tips for the office, if I can tie it back right to the policy, is let's make sure your people know that it's just policy is not to do anything that's not job related. We're often asked for a copy of our policies by agencies. Well, you know, what do you guys do? Can we see yours so we can make our own? And we suggest keeping it very simple. Our policy simply says you're not allowed to do anything that's not for your job function. And then our safe web browsing rules really just come up around that. If you don't already, consider having in place an internet monitoring and filtering system. There's lots of different ways that you can accomplish this. A lot of agencies today have firewalls that are kind of an all-in-one built-in appliance that have it all right built in. Some bigger agencies might have a separate thing that does this to help speed up web browsing. I mean, you can even put it at the PC level. Now, the higher level you go, the easier it is to manage, and the less impact it's going to have on the agency making things slow and whatnot. So, big important piece that a lot of agencies really haven't gotten to the point of yet, but we do recommend. A piece that we know most agencies do have is proper antivirus and anti-malware protection. Now, it's not good enough just to have them installed. You do want to make sure your IT people are responsible for making sure it's updated, making sure it's scanning, and then not only when it's running, but if stuff gets found, that it gets cleaned up. The systems usually will stop bad stuff from happening, but quite often they don't actually do the cleanup without extra intervention. So make sure who's ever responsible for your antivirus is doing at least weekly cleanups behind the scenes too. And last but not least, and this is probably the hardest one to wrap our heads around, and where I'm going to give most tips today, is be a skeptic. You know, most of the time online, if you see something that looks funny, it really is. Same goes for email. Same goes for apps on your smartphone. If it looks funny or seems too good to be true, let's just play it safe and not even mess with that when it comes to doing stuff at work. Good habits to get into for your home computing as well. So, you know, with all that said, what should we be watching out for? I'll give you some basics, and a lot of them, you know, are going to be kind of common sense things. But online chat is one. And I'm not talking about message boards. Things like NetVU's forums are great resources, and we do recommend people use those. But I'm talking about like just online chat sites, whether it be dating-related chat or interest-related chat. But most of those sites allow things to be sent across to other users via advertisements, links, and whatnot. And they're very hard to check and make sure that they're safe. Gambling and gaming sites, you know we should just be keeping those at home. And that goes right along with illegal download sites too. There's lots of stuff, unfortunately, out there that promises super cheap software, or even, hey, get this free version of the software without having to download any license codes or pay for it. Hackers and these bad people are usually just trolling around those places waiting for people to do things. Nothing is free. They usually have very low security. Aside from being illegal, that's usually where these hackers are hiding. But here's a tricky one, social networking. Now, all the marketing-related people out there right now are saying, oh my gosh, what is he talking about? We can't not do social networking. And we understand that this is one of the best ways to stay in touch with your clients now, as well as just keeping in touch with what's going on in the industry. But that doesn't necessarily mean everyone in the agency needs social networking. And that's one of the themes here in our event today, is who needs access to what, and let's limit who can do what. Usually the people who are in charge of the social networking at agencies are, tend to be more savvy with those websites. They understand better what they're doing, and they're going to keep it safe. Sites like Facebook, Instagram, whatever you can see online there, generally anything you click on, whether it be a picture, more so videos, especially things like games, they're not actually in the social networking site. They're taking you elsewhere. Facebook, does some protection, but they don't scan all the links that are sent across in your news feeds or in messages. So generally, when you're going somewhere in social networking, by clicking on a link, you've now left their site and you're no longer protected. So any good web filtering solution should be able to very quickly and easily limit social networking so just the people that need to go there can. And then I've got lots of examples of some of those fake pop-ups that you might run into online and how we identify them. So let's hop right into some examples. So let's say you're browsing the web and all of a sudden, boom, this antivirus action pops up and you instantly think, oh boy, something happened, my antivirus software has popped up. But this and all the other ones I'm going to show you here are fake. There's lots of different ways to recognize they're fake, but the easiest way to recognize it is based around staff training. And that is, make sure your staff knows and understands what you guys have for antivirus software at the agency, and they should only ever see that pop up. Most of our companies that we work with do have Sophos antivirus, So they know if they get any kind of an antivirus pop-up that says it's not anything but Sophos, it's probably fake. And what these programs really are doing is they're not being super helpful in scanning your computer for viruses and threats right off the bat. They're just a big click here to install me virus button. So it doesn't matter if you click stop scan in the bottom right or click the X in the bottom and the top right. Again, it's a facade over a big install the virus button. Here's another tricky one, and they've taken some Microsoft logos and kind of altering them a little bit and giving you that look and feel of Windows Vista here. Again, places stealing the Microsoft logos. These guys don't care about copyright infringements, right? They're just out to do bad stuff. So just more examples of the same type of stuff. Typically, these are going to show their scanning. This one's super helpful, where they think they're going to scan you with every known antivirus out there to show how helpful they are. But this is just one of many examples that's a false pop-up. Again, you don't want to click anywhere on here. It's just a big install the virus button. Lastly, I'd like to show this one because this one is super tricky. Microsoft Security Essentials is actually a real Microsoft program. But know that it's not free for commercial use, and it's not free if you have around over 10 people using it. So 9 times out of 10, if not 99 times out of 100, agencies are not actually using Security Essentials. So again, just important to know what you're actually using at your office. So a little tip when it comes to web browsing, you never want to click on ads. That's when most of these pop-ups come up. I know the ad people out there, again, the marketing people are probably cringing when they hear this, but you're better off going the long way, taking a couple extra clicks than trying to click on an ad. Whether it be embedded in Yahoo or MSN or on the sidebar of an insurance carrier's website, most of those people don't know where their ads are coming from. We do feel strongly about this, and a little piece of news to back it up. About a year ago or so, Yahoo actually published that they had their home. All they're doing is they're carving out space for advertisers to pop ads in. The advertisers are at many times reselling their ad space to others, so you never know what's safe. So even if it's on ads on websites you're familiar with, we recommend not clicking on them. If you see a cool ad for a sale on a lawnmower from Lowe's, we recommend you go to the Lowe's website and look up that sale directly, just an example. Now, how about if you're doing searching? I'd like to point out what that looks like on Google. Let's just say I'm looking for some new jeans. When you do searches for your Levi's 501s, you'll notice that the first few hits that come up, they're not actually search results. Those are ads as well. And they usually are at least nice enough to show the word ad there so you understand what you're clicking on. And then the fourth link down actually is the first search result. So the top 3 things are ads. So if anything, please share this screenshot with everyone at your agencies once this webinar gets online of these are what not to click on. Now, if you do click on one of these things and you do have a firewall that's protecting you from lots of bad stuff, including advertisements, which is what we recommend for agencies to block ads, you would see something like this. This website has been blocked by your network administrator, and big old shortcut, and then it says category. This is a web advertisement. So if you can click on those ads and not see this, just know that you're not protected from ads, and make sure your IT people get that in place for you. So that's what to look out for, but what do you do if you do run into some of these pop-ups? Because again, you don't even want to click that X in the top right like you would normally do to, say, close Word or your management system. So first is a little preventative. Make sure your computers are patched, because a lot of the times these things are just trying to get in with vulnerabilities from Microsoft. Don't lower your web browser security settings. This is a common one that we see when agencies call up and talk to an insurance carrier saying, hey, when I'm browsing and opening up a policy, my new window opens, but it's all blank. The policy or the search not popping up. One of the first things we've seen tech support do is simply tell you to lower your web browser security settings. And unfortunately, that's not usually good advice. That's kind of the quick way around things. There's a better way to do it. So we say don't lower your web browser security settings, just to be safe. But if you do get these pop-ups, once you've taken all these measures still, make sure you educate your staff not only what to watch for, but if they do see it, press Alt and F4 on your keyboard. That's a Windows shortcut that basically will just close the programs that are up in front of you. Now, if you happen to get a cascade of like 5 different pop-ups, hold the Alt key and just start pressing that F4 until they all go away. Again, you don't want to click cancel or close, or not even that X in the top right to close the program. This will probably be the only time you'll hear an IT person too say that when all else fails, if you have to, you might need to just shut your computer down without doing a normal shutdown sequence of just hitting the power, hitting the reset. That would be safer than clicking on one of these things because you can't make it go away. And then again, we've talked about it. Let's make sure we install web filtering devices on our network. A lot of agencies, really say, no, we don't want one of these things because we don't want to be Big Brother, which we understand. A lot of them have the ability to just block that stuff without tracking what people are doing. So we've gone through a lot, and we're going to keep moving quickly for you. We're going to talk about email security now. Focused around email security, we are going to talk about spam and how spam can be the entry point for all this bad stuff. We've heard about spam for 10 years. We all have to deal with it, and it's drastically changed over time. From our perspective as IT people, it's just more and more complicated, it seems on a monthly basis at least, to deal with spam. So to give you an idea of what it looks like out there, there's roughly 137 billion email flowing through at least the publicly scannable systems on a given day. 130-some billion emails a day. Seems like I get about half of those, and about half are junk, right? 95% seems to be about the advertised block rate for spam filters. So given that percentage, we're still talking 6 billion spam coming through on a daily basis. That's a lot of junk still making it through to our filters. So of that 6 billion emails, we're going to get a couple spam a day. It is perfectly normal, and we wish we could get away from getting spam. It does ebb and flow. We hear all the time from agencies saying, hey, what's going on with the system? Is something turned off, or is something broken? I got 7 spam today, and I haven't gotten many for the last couple weeks. And that's just how it goes, is they ebb and flow. When the spam people come out with new stuff, new viruses, they come out with new spam techniques. And almost 90% of all the viruses do come from spam. So I mentioned earlier that a lot of stuff comes from websites, but still the vast majority comes from spam email. So a few key points to avoiding spam, and I know this. I had somebody tell me the other day that this is my Captain Obvious slide, and I should have had a picture of Captain Obvious up here. But I want to explain a little bit of some things to look out for, and then I'll give you again lots of examples so you can take them back to your agency. So keys to avoiding spam. The sender can go both ways. It's either somebody who we have no idea what this email is from. We don't know this place. We don't know this company or this person. So that's usually a good giveaway. We on a daily basis get 2 or 3 or 4 inquiries from agencies saying, hey, can you take a look at this email? Is it junk? We don't know this person. And most of the time, without even looking at it, we could safely say, well, then let's just get rid of it to be safe. But also, most spam virus type things are going to come from people that you do know, at least the ones that we see actually sneak through. Because one of the first things the virus people and the hackers try to do is get into your address book and send themselves to your friends and coworkers and relatives. So the sender is tricky, and we've got to look at it 2 different ways. Do you flat out not know them and this email looks weird? Or does the email look weird and you do know them? And that's where the subject comes in. My wife might email me once or twice here and there throughout the week at work, usually only when it's important. I've got her trained. I love it. But if the subject says, hey, or hi, or check this out, I know those are things that are probably not going to be coming from her. Same that if you would get something from a coworker that you would normally not get from them, here's a cool game for you, check out this video, that sounds kind of suspicious and fishy to me. I would be leery, I would be skeptical about that email, even though I know the person, because the subject looks odd. It's easier when you don't know the person and the subject looks odd. But keep an eye on that subject, because a lot of those things are going to pre-fill. And then lastly, of course, is the content. I'm going to give you lots of examples of how we avoid the bad content in an email. So here's one. We call this email a phishing email. What they do is, think of it like if you're a fisherman, you've got your line in the water and you're kind of jiggling your lure, going here you go, just waiting for somebody to bite. These spammers are going to work very hard on making their emails look like they're really coming from American Express or other reputable sources. Again, like we saw with those fake pop-ups, they're not really concerned about copyright infringement, about stealing people's logos and web addresses and other information. So you might look at this and say, gee, this looks really weird. Oh my gosh, something might have happened. But do you have an American Express card? That's the first question I might ask. The first time I got one of these, I actually didn't have one. So dead giveaway. But again, it sounds funny, but let's just make sure that we're getting our people into that mindset of, gee, does this even really apply to me? If you do have an American Express card, that's fine. Get rid of the email. Don't touch it if you're not 100% sure, and then just log on to your American Express account. Or you can even call customer service. But chances are all of these links are fake, and they'll take you to a bad place. We've seen them now where they're getting more tricky, where only one of them is fake, and all the privacy statements might actually take you to the real place. But again, we recommend not clicking on any link in any email from any kind of support company. Always go to their website and see what's going on that way. Here's another example, and what I've done here is I've actually hovered over the link just to show you where the link is really going. You know, it's a website thing. Most websites you go to, they don't actually spell the link out for you. They just say click here, right? And this is what the emails do too. You can make the text of the link say anything. And in most cases, they're going to make the text of the link say one address and really take you to another. So here's a great example. Please review the details of the payment here. But if you hover over the link, it's really taking you to some Dropbox place. And Dropbox, and there's lots of other ones out there like it too, is a place where you store files. Most of the time, that file is a virus. So hover over that link before you click and see if it really is going to take you where you think. Best thing, again, if you're not sure, just delete it. Here's a tricky one, UPS. This is especially tricky for me because we online shop a lot. And I hate to say it, and I know a lot of you are in the same boat, but we probably don't remember all the stuff we bought online, do we? Amazon Prime makes it so easy, we're getting packages 3-4 days a week. So we recommend doing all your package tracking through the websites. Again, don't click on the links in emails. This is another example where the links in the emails are just fake. They're taking you to a different place. And you know that, again, by hovering over them with your mouse. Here's a cute little pooch, again, with a neat little offer in an email. But this one in particular I like to show because this is an example that we're seeing more and more frequently now too, is a way to sneak through spam filters is they don't actually have text in their email. So there's no text for the spam filter to scan. Everything you're seeing here, the don't pay full price for dog food, the tagline under it, the click here, even the unsubscribe link, it's all one big photo. It's one big picture. So in this email, it doesn't matter where you click. So next time you see an email with lots of pictures and rich content like this, simply move your mouse over it, and if you notice that, gee, anywhere I put my mouse, even in the blank white space or above the link, it looks like it's a place to click. It's probably a picture, and that whole picture has a link behind it of take me to the virus. So it's tricky. So you're going to need to learn to watch where your mouse says you're going to be going. So here's another one, and they literally spelled out the link for us this time. I like to show this one because it's taken us to a PHP page, which at the surface sounds like it's a normal web page file. And it is, with the exception that whenever you see a link like this, it's going to a .si place. Well, we know for starters that's going to be some kind of a foreign country. So, you know, that's where we see a large percentage of the viruses come from is foreign countries, unfortunately. So this is, again, just another dead giveaway that it's a virus. You'll notice this one actually came to us. It came to our purchasing person. A lot of really interesting things about this example, and this is one of the better examples to share, is we, like a lot of other agencies, do have voicemail to email. We've seen this one in particular. It will usually only deliver this spam email with the virus link between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. And who knows why? It's because that's when we're usually out to lunch, right? So we would think it's probably normal to have a voicemail that we missed during that time. Very tricky, and I've seen this come across at a lot of different agencies. So it's important, you, one, train your staff again on what kind of antivirus program you have, but two, make sure everybody understands what your voicemail to email emails really look like. And let your staff know, reinforce the fact that if you are going to make system changes, you'll let them know ahead of time, and you'll show them examples of what their voicemails really look like. So everybody should open this one and say, oh gosh, this isn't what our voicemail to emails look like, this is a blatant junk. But it takes a little staff training. Here's another example of one that's like that for faxing systems. We've seen faxes look like that too. This one in particular looks very similar to a lot of agency fax systems that we've seen, with the exception of it doesn't have the name of our fax system at the top, but also our fax system always puts the fax right in the email, not to download or view the file, please click here link. So again, this was another big agency training example. Here's another recent example. I actually just saw this one come in on Sunday, so I thought I would just share it. Again, a very normal-looking email. Just another spam. My last example, and this is probably another big one around the agency training side of things, is we're seeing a lot of them that say resume or invoice or charges, or even some of them lately about some lawsuits or trouble that your agency's gotten into. You know, those are real attention grabbers. They're trying to get us to open these things and take a look. But train your staff to understand that most of the time they're going to get things like that, it's spam. So if Betty at the agency gets an email that says, my resume, click here to open this file, whether it's a zip file or a Word document, if Betty doesn't have anything to do with hiring, chances are her email address isn't out there on any hiring places, so it can't be real. Same, I would never receive invoices at work. I don't have anything to do with accounting or AR or AP. I would never receive any email or invoices, receipts, anything like that. So it's got to be junk if it comes to me like that. Some other safety tips here before we move on to our next quick topic. Let's try to enforce a policy like we had with Internet of not letting people check personal emails at work. Now, biggest reason is a lot of the reasons why or the way we told you that viruses spread. 89% of email viruses or viruses come through email. We've also got a very high percentages of those that latch onto your address book. So they're going to send to people that you know. The majority of viruses we see that come in at agencies via email are from people checking personal email at work. There is no safe time. Letting people do it for an hour at lunch is just as risky because they're just going to work faster to go through their emails and probably be less likely to pay attention to those tricky emails that aren't really a good one. Don't unsubscribe from spam. Most of the time, a spam email with an unsubscribed link, it's a link that's taking you to a place that might even look like a real unsubscribed page. And really, in the background, it's just a registration of your email address being real. And now they're going to pass your email around to other places. Oftentimes, people ask us, why do I keep getting so much junk? Did my name get on a list? I never sign up for things. Probably unsubscribing is what got you. This is, in most cases, signing up for spam. Now, granted, if there's a totally legit-looking agency newsletter from a carrier or from another vendor, those are going to be safe to unsubscribe from. But if you're not sure, or it just blatantly looks like junk, don't bother unsubscribing. Most spam filters have a way to do a block without an unsubscribe. Make sure your email filtering is blocking things called executables and script files. If you don't know what those mean, that's okay. Let's just tell your IT people and ask them to make sure they're blocking them. Here's one that can be a point of contention for some agencies, especially depending on what carriers you work with, but we do recommend that whenever possible, you do block zip files as well. Because as you saw in my last example, one of the latest and greatest viruses that we're seeing passed in an email they're starting to put them in zips because most people deal with zips for normal work. If you're emailing a lot of stuff and you have to have a zip, a lot of filters will let only certain people do zips and block it for others. So we strongly encourage at least a discussion about how you can block zips at the agency and still be productive. And then lastly, block files with macros in them. This comes to some of those resume email viruses that we're seeing lately. They're trying to now be even more sneaky in putting things into Word macros. I know there's lots of talk on the association user group forums about macros. There's lots of great resources out there. And basically, if you don't know what a macro is it's programming stuff that happens behind the scenes in a Word doc or an Excel file and so on. So a lot of these guys are getting tricky. They're taking legit resumes and just putting viruses behind the resume in a macro. So a lot of filtering systems block macros as well. They're smart enough to find them. We also recommend for safety for all the Microsoft Outlook users out there to turn off your reading pane. And in older versions of Outlook, this was called the preview pane. To do that, you click on View, click on Reading Pane, and turn it off. So if you're used to just clicking on an email and on the right-hand side or the bottom it shows you what's in the email, I'm actually going to be doing a webinar about productivity soon. And this is one of those anti-productivity things where it's definitely worth the extra click or two to double-click that email to open it. And it's not even so much about the email you're looking at, but it's the next one. Because if you're looking at an email and you just press delete, if you had your preview pane on, it instantly opens the next email to show you. Now, whether you double-clicked it or not, Outlook is still opening the email to show you what's in it. Outlook is effectively opening that email with the virus. Not a month goes by where Microsoft doesn't release a security update for Outlook that plugs some kind of a hole or a security flaw. And until that trend stops, we recommend turning off Reading Pane to be safe. Take that extra double-click to open up your email. All right, so shifting gears to mobile security. This is another way that ransomware can get in because I think a high percentage of agencies nowadays have their mobile phones hooked up to the office. So let's talk about how we can keep them safe. So since 2014, Android malware is up 400%. And that's infections. That's what we're seeing people actually getting. And that's a study from Gartner Group. You may or may not have heard of them. They're a huge surveying company that does a lot of stuff around technology. So some good mobile security practices for you are making sure that we've got a device configured to include a password. We don't want to have anybody's devices out there just be able to swipe to open. And why is that? Well, that's for the simple one of you just don't want people to get onto your phone, right? But also by putting passwords into your phone, that's also making sure that you're compliant with a certain set of standards that the agency has put in place. I'll get to that in a minute, how some of those standards kind of tie together, and a password is just one of those pieces. You do want to make sure that you get all the updates available on your phone too. If you've been struggling with space on your phone because it's full and you don't have enough space to do it, there's a lot of great solutions out there to back up your pictures and videos to the cloud. If you're using Google, you can use the Google Photos app. I've actually even seen TV commercials recently for Google Photos, which is interesting. It is a free app. And then for all the Apple folks out there, of course, you've got your iCloud. And both services do have a certain amount of free space storage. And then you can pay a very small amount to get a huge storage increase. So please make sure you're updating your phone so they always get the latest and greatest security patches. If you have an older phone, chances are you're very rarely prompted for updates. Those who have newer phones can probably attest that the newer your phone, the more you're prompted for updates. And that's a trend that all the cell phone manufacturers and carriers are working hard on. So another thing to think about is, gee, I don't have any update prompts on my phone. That probably means your phone is just on an older version of software and inherently doesn't have all the security abilities of new ones. So you might even consider getting a new phone, even if you love that old goodie, just so you can get all the latest security updates. There are antivirus solutions out there for phones. They work differently than typical antivirus for computers. Their jobs are more about scanning your phones for bad applications that are trying to do bad stuff. Viruses work differently on phones. I'll get into that more in a minute. And then lastly, encryption on your phone is an important security measure. That just makes it so if people do manage to somehow get information off your phone, they're not going to be able to read it. It's going to be encrypted. Or let's say you have a memory card in your phone. You choose to encrypt your memory card, and if you've got a bad app that's trying to steal all your information, it won't be able to access that. Proper disposal of your device is obviously goes right along with encryption. If somebody were to find it, they can get the information on it if it's not properly disposed of. We're often asked, okay, so what's the way to properly dispose of them? Plain and simple, most devices have a factory reset option. We recommend everybody goes through that at minimum before you get rid of an old phone. And like we talked about for internet and for email, let's develop some usage guidelines for phones, especially if they're work-provided phones. So getting back to the whole virus thing about mobile, our advice for keeping safe is choose your apps wisely. This more pertains to people on the Android phones, so Samsung, HTC, those kind of things. We never want to download anything that says it can unlock the free version of this for free, or the paid version for free. Also, a tricky one is don't rely on app reviews saying, oh, this is the best app ever, and all they have is 5 stars. We've heard of, unfortunately, places in foreign countries that will pay people like $1 a week, rooms and rooms full of people to write fake reviews. The most important thing is you do want to check the app's permission requirements and don't install anything that asks for too much. And then lastly, don't enter any personal information into an app. Most apps are going to be able to properly tie into your phone already and will ask you if you want them to be able to read your information. It's very odd for apps to ask for your personal info just by themselves. So my bank has tried to, probably about 4 or 5 months now at least, get me to try their new mobile app. They've got to push for it, obviously, because they're proud of it. So every time I go to the bank, are you using our mobile app? No. Why not? Because it's too insecure. And I always get a weird look from the cashiers. Say, I'm an IT person, and your app just wants too much. Whenever you try to install an app in the Android universe, it's going to give you a list of what the app wants to try to do. And we strongly encourage everyone to take a look and see what it's asking for. Don't just click OK real quick to get it installed. You know, we've seen apps out there like this one here, this IMDb. I'm a movie buff, but do I necessarily want a movie app in the background to, without my knowledge, be able to make phone calls or send messages or delete or modify contents on my memory card or read contacts or modify my contacts or read logs or sensitive logs or track me without my knowing my GPS or even using credentials, i.e. taking passwords off of my phone? I've seen flashlight apps do this. As far as I'm concerned, there's no reason for my bank and their app to be able to do all of this stuff. So, unfortunately, being a tech guy, I'm left a little in the, wanting more from my bank, but I'm just not going to do it. I've actually considered getting a new bank instead of using their app just so I can get somebody's app who's more secure. So choose your apps wisely. Now all the Apple users are saying, hey, what about us? I didn't forget about you. Basically, Apple pre-screens all the apps on the App Store. They try very hard. So most of the bad stuff that has come through the App Store has been rejected by Apple. It still does happen. It still does come through. Unfortunately, in Apple world, you're never asked if you want to allow apps to do things. They're just going to do what they want. So same rules go for Apple users. Don't download anything that says it's going to unlock a free thing or unlock a paid thing for free or do all this other stuff. You know, it's all neat to just want to try to find the latest and greatest app. We recommend going online and seeing what other online reviews have said about these apps rather than looking at the reviews in the app stores. But a lot of those things don't apply to Apple because Apple just hides a lot of that stuff from you. So our advice overall for folks is consider something called MDM, and that's a new technology term nowadays. It stands for Mobile Device Management. Whether the agency is providing phones or allowing your employees to hook up to the agency system with their phone, even if it's just for email. So phones can be controlled at the administrative level. We can set and enforce agency-defined security policies. Some good ones would be examples of not letting your employees connect their phones to open, unsecure wireless. That's a very important consideration. Also, they've usually got basic things like the ability to track your phone or wipe it if it was lost or stolen. Now, sure, we've all got that ability at some form on an individual basis if we've been good enough to set that up. But if I'm an agency owner or a manager, knowing anybody is accessing our information through their phone worries me already. And in most cases, you can't tell what they've gotten through email or what they've copied onto their phone and kept for contacts and whatnot. So an MDM is going to let you not necessarily, again, be a big brother, but just protect the agency and in a lot of cases help your users if their phone, or again, we're going to get lost or stolen. So what else can we do? We've covered a big range of things. I mentioned Wi-Fi already, just not letting your phones be hooking to insecure Wi-Fi, but that goes for laptops as well. Starbucks, McDonald's, all those. Obviously, wherever we go, there's free Wi-Fi nowadays. So if you're going to hook to free Wi-Fi, let's just have your IT people first. Make sure that you know how to check and activate your Windows firewall on your computer. That's going to be a little layer of protection from you. So if you're not sure what that means or how to access the firewall on your computer, and you're planning on going to places with free Wi-Fi, even hotels or conventions, let's make sure you know how to handle your Windows firewall. All the other tips we talked about before applied to sticking with safe web browsing, making sure your computers are patched and whatnot. But free Wi-Fi is a blessing and a curse. Let's just make sure we know how to protect ourselves. A couple little security tips that are kind of going to put the cap on our ransomware webinar today is dealing with passwords. And please stick in for the next couple of minutes. I got some important tips for agencies here. According to a lot of studies out there, most passwords can be cracked by password hackers in about 2 minutes. There's programs out there nowadays that do these. There's not people out there trying to guess your passwords. There's programs that are trying to guess passwords, hundreds of thousands of passwords a second. So the more complicated your password, the better. And all they need is one password. If anybody remembered the Zappos hack that was happened a couple of years ago, or LinkedIn, these were all cases of weak passwords. Target, when they got hacked, Home Depot, they were weak passwords too. Unfortunately, both of those were weak passwords of vendors that were connected to them. So you even have less control. That's why passwords are so important. Just as important as knowing that how passwords can get out there is understand too that when one place gets hacked, usually what's happening is people's usernames and passwords get compromised. So think to yourself, do you have the same Facebook password as you do your Twitter password and your LinkedIn password and your Instagram password? A lot of people do. And Twitter a while ago said, hey, we weren't hacked. And they were fighting tooth and nail, telling everybody they weren't hacked. Well, technically they're right, they weren't. LinkedIn was hacked, but so many people have the same Twitter password and sign on as LinkedIn, it seemed like they were, because the hackers who got all the passwords were just trying them on every website they could think. So just as important as the strong passwords are keep different passwords. We're going to give you a top 10 of the worst passwords. If any of you have this password today, please, before you take off, let's change it. Every year, Tech Websites comes out with these lists. I always get a kick to see what's out there. A lot of them are silly, and we all understand them. I'm going to throw in a bonus for everybody today of 2 extra passwords. Actually, I guess 1 password algorithm. I don't know why, and I'm going to let the cat out of the bag simply because I do see it as a big risk. There's some consultants out there somewhere telling people to secure passwords, make them a season and make them a year. And even maybe put a space in between them to make them more secure. Please don't do that. That's just another example of an easily gettable password. The password hacking systems are out there are going to get these very quickly. Plus, again, these are not very unique passwords. Our recommendations for strong passwords are keep them complex. Our recommendation, go as high as you can, at least 8 characters minimum. The longer the character, or the longer the password, the better. It's just going to take those password crackers longer. Usually this means they're going to give up before they get yours. Try to do a non-dictionary thing, so not a word like fall. or non-repeated words like Bob, Bob, Bob. Because usually when they get one word, that's the first thing they do is they just try to repeat the word. Again, don't use the same password for every account. Not so much a technology thing, but try not to have your password written down. Where it is more of a technology thing is don't make a Word doc with all your passwords in it, and especially don't make an Excel doc without passwords in it and not password protect your password doc. Keep them in a secure place. We do recommend you change them every 16 to 90 days too. I'm probably leaving everybody now saying, okay, you want super complicated passwords for every single account we have and you want them to change every 60 days. And I know it's a lot. There are solutions out there that will help you track and remember your passwords. A great one, if you haven't heard of it before, is RoboForm. So go check it out if you are in the same boat like me here, where you're going to end up with 30 different passwords and you'll never remember them. RoboForm, great solution. I know I've mentioned it once or 9 times during the webinar again, but let's please keep your IT people accountable. Make sure their software and systems are all up to date with their security patches. So once you leave here, just shoot your IT people an email and just get some ideas on how they're doing your updates. So on a final note, let's say we did get all these protections out there, but something happened and we were still infected. What happens? What do we do? So some quick tips. First is please do not pay that ransom. We've all heard of somebody who knows somebody who knew a guy whose neighbor's cousin paid the ransom and got his files back, but I've never truthfully actually seen it happen. Again, I've seen the cases. Everybody says, yeah, so-and-so got their files back. I've never seen it. Even if you do get your files back, if you've got good systems in place, you can save yourself $500. Maybe it's not worth it. So here's what you do. Got to take inventory first of what got infected. The way these things work and spread is they're going to just simply get what you are already allowed to have access to. So your IT people should be able to quickly look through the servers and see what was infected. There are some new tools out there that are available simply because some people asked the virus makers if they could have the encryption code. And they said, sure, here you are. Nobody's ever asked us. So they then took the encryption codes and wrote a tool to decrypt some files. Now, unfortunately, there's about 4 decryptor tools out there, and there's like 30 different versions of these viruses. Usually the decryptor tools take an hour or 2 to even try to run, and you don't know till they're done if they worked. So again, your IT people will probably be leveraging these things, but just make sure that they know that they're aware of what decryptor tools are available. It may help save you some time. But what it comes down to is if you get these things, you're going to be restoring from a backup. Generally what we do is if an agency were to get this, unfortunately, and just because, again, somebody clicked on something they shouldn't is usually what happens, you're going to take inventory of what they got or what got infected, you're going to delete it, and you're going to restore it. Now, hopefully you've got some more advanced backup systems, like an image-based backup system, or you've got some kind of virtual servers and snapshots. I know a lot of technology terms real quick there. So again, let's ask your IT folks, are we doing image-based backups? What kind of backups are we doing? Or do we have virtual servers and do we have snapshots? All you need to know is those are things that are going to get you up and running quicker if you have to restore. Because that's what's going to happen is if you get infected, you're going to have to restore in most cases. So hopefully that's answered a lot of questions for people. My parting words, again, are be a skeptic, whether it be an internet pop-up, a tricky-looking email, or an odd-looking app on your phone. Let's just train our people and get into the habit of being a skeptic. So thank you again for NetVU and for everybody joining us today for allowing us to speak. I'm going to stick around online for a little while if anybody does have any questions. I'm happy to answer those.
Okay, I do see that we do have a few questions. The first question is, how do you close out of these fake antivirus pop-ups? Just hit the close button?
Yeah, so what you want to do, again, is use that magic little hotkey combination that I mentioned earlier, and it'll be in the slide too. But that is Alt and the F4 key. So the function key on the top, F4. Alt F4 is a Windows shortcut that will just close the program in front of you. If you were to Alt F4 when you're in Word, it'll try to close Word or Internet Explorer, and that's the safest thing to do with any of those fake pop-ups. The X button in those fake pop-ups is usually a fake X button. It'll make it look like it go away, but it's probably installing the virus at the same time. So Alt F4. If your computer were to act up where the Alt F4 isn't working, I would say stop what you're doing and call your IT people, but don't click on anything. That might be a rare case where they'll tell you just to shut the system down without closing stuff. But yeah, good question. You don't want to click, use Alt F4.
Okay. Our next question is, what can I do to protect myself from zombie computer attacks?
Zombie computer attacks, I love it. So that is what happens is a virus gets in your system. One of the things a lot of them are made to do is just to spread themselves and take control of other systems, and then take control of other systems, and then take control of other systems. If anybody's heard of big companies or big websites being taken offline by some attack, they're usually called denial of service attacks. Usually what they are is they're tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of computers around the country or around the world that have all been virus infected, and they're just going to try to take over your computers and target people. I think I know who asked this, so I appreciate the question. First, make sure you've got a good firewall in place, because your firewall should be able to detect these zombie attacks, if you will, and kind of shut that traffic down. Whenever we're setting up customers' firewalls for our agencies that we work with, we put a lot of rules in place that will block a lot of the suspicious stuff from being able to talk. So a good, robust network firewall, not something from your internet provider, not something from the cable company, and not something from a store like Best Buy, but an actual enterprise-grade firewall will usually have those capabilities.
Okay, thank you. The next question is there a safe flashlight app?
The safest flashlight app out there is one that doesn't ask for permissions. I've seen a few of them. I don't remember the name right off the top of my head. I want to say it's something along the lines of Brightest Flashlight, Brightest LED Flashlight. But I do know there are a couple highly reviewed flashlight apps that simply don't ask for any permissions at all. So the safest app in general, flashlight or other, is if an app says this requires no permissions, then it can't do much harm to you. So check out Brightest Flashlight. That might be the one that I'm trying to remember.
Okay, and it looks like our last question is, what happens when RoboForm is hacked?
So that is a wonderful question. Obviously, if I was a hacker, one of the first places that I would go to is the place that stores the passwords, right? RoboForm does have a few different solutions. There's RoboForm Desktop, which will sit on each computer. So all your files and passwords are managed separately. There's RoboForm Enterprise, which will work great for an agency to centrally store all the info on your network. It will allow for an extra layer of protection for your network admin or your IT people to help manage your passwords too. That is the version that we recommend agencies to consider, is the Enterprise version, where it keeps all your passwords securely on the network so only the admins can see them. There is another version of RoboForm, and they change the name frequently. I think the name is now like RoboForm Anywhere. But it's basically the online version of RoboForm. And exactly because of that question and that circumstance, we don't recommend using an online password management. Use the RoboForm that's going to sit on the agency's network servers in a protected location. Good question.
Okay, our next question is, are Apple apps more secure than Android?
In general, because Apple filters them so tightly, yes, they are. There's just a lot less that can get out there in the Apple world than there is the Android because Google doesn't filter. So that's why I go through all the things to watch out for in the Android world. So in short, yes, the Apple apps are generally more secure than Android because they just have a less chance of bad stuff getting through. That's not to say it can't happen. So still look out for the too good to be true stuff. But actually, yeah, they're to a point more secure than Android apps.
Okay, it looks like that is all of the questions, but I do have one comment from let's see, this person did want to thank you. She said, she's like, please tell him that he is an excellent presenter. So someone watching did
appreciate
want to
that.
let you know that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I'm glad you guys stuck around, and hopefully you take some of these tips back to the agencies. We know that they can help.
Okay. Well, again, thank you, Bryant, for that very informative presentation. And just a reminder that all attendees will receive a copy of this session once the recording has been edited. And again, thank you, Bryant, and thank you all for attending.
You're very welcome. Thank you, everybody, and have a great afternoon.